Board of Commissioners work session meeting for Thursday, June 15th, 2023 to order. The time is 7 p.m.
Commissioner Stump,
Here.
Commissioner Atwood,
Here.
Commissioner Gray,
Here.
Commissioner Zona,
Here.
Commissioner Wingren,
Here.
Commissioner Goss, Commissioner Goss,
Here.
President Hagus.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If any citizens would like to speak tonight, please sign the book on the podium. No citizens input? Okay. Work session topics. Manager Falk.
Item number 1 is renaming Indian Lake. This was brought to our attention by Commissioner Atwood at the previous meeting for discussion.
In doing my due diligence and doing some research, I have found that the Allegwe may not have been the native tribe to this land. So if it is the pleasure of the board and this is the way we want to go, I mean, I'd be more than happy to reach out and do the actual research needed and talk with the current tribe and kind of work with them. But if this is something we don't want to do and we just want to keep it the way it is, then I'm okay with that as well.
Any input from the board?
I would like to move forward with renaming it to one of the local Indian tribes to honor them and respect them and all that they did for the early pioneers. So I'm all for Mr. Atwood's moving forward on renaming the lake.
I'm gonna go with keeping it as is. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it being Indian Lake. It's been like that since the beginning, and I'm okay with it staying the way it is.
I'm with Lindsay. I think it still honors the local Indians and our Bushy Run heritage. So I would agree with Lindsay. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Did Manager Falk, did you say this was brought up before at a meeting?
At the last meeting during board comments, Commissioner Atwood spoke about wanting to discuss about renaming
Okay.
it to the Indian
I
tribe.
don't recall that. What was the impetus of this? What brought it forward to you?
In doing research with my Cub Scout group about the Battle of Bushy Run, I found that the people native to this area actually fought in that war, in that battle. And it got me to kind of looking into it, and then Harry had posted the trivia question online, and it kind of got me thinking, and that it was only a just a way to bring it even more central, like bring attention more to the actual tribe that lived here. Like I said, I'm okay either way if we want to keep it the way it is.
So your thought would be to name it after the particular tribe then?
Yes.
I'm okay with leaving it alone right now.
Any other board comments?
Yeah, I think I'm comfortable with leaving it Indian Lake Park. I think it's a recognizable name, and people inside our community and outside the community recognize Indian Lake Park. I don't know if changing the name is necessarily a good idea.
And I would just add my 2 cents. I agree with that comment, where I would just like to see it remain Indian Lake Park also. So it appears that the wishes of the board are to leave it remain the same, so we can take that off the agenda for next week.
All right, item number 2, the McKee Road and MacArthur Drive LTAP study. We had PennDOT's LTAP team come out the end of last month two engineers that took a look at the intersection. They met with myself and engineer Cody Grabiak, and they performed their study and did a report that I forwarded on to the board. Some initial changes that we're going to do right away is extend that crosswalk, make it wider to not as so much slanted, but more of a straight. So it goes to MacArthur, because while we were there, we witnessed two people that were crossing, and they crossed in the middle of the intersection and did not utilize the crosswalk. The signage is too far away for watching for pedestrians, or yield to pedestrians. So we're going to move those down to that intersection with a downward arrow pointing at the crosswalk per their recommendations, and put signs on either side of the road to make it more visible. And then those are the first alternatives that are cheap. You know, we can do those, get them done. The second option, if that doesn't work and it's still unsafe, is either put like a big speed table in that make that intersection raised up a little bit to slow down cars. It's like a speed bump, but it's bigger, or a four-way stop sign. The warrants, it does not meet the one set of warrants, but it would meet another set of warrants if the engineer would sign off on making it, or feels that it's unsafe for pedestrian crossing, then the engineer can sign off on it, and the board can go ahead with a four-way stop sign, or four-way stop sign for that intersection. Then after that, the additional option, which is more costly, would be the flashing signs that we found. They're about $10,000 for two signs that are pedestrian crossing signs. You walk up, they're solar powered, you walk up, press a button, and they flash to give warning to the drivers. But again, you know, that's cost more, and it's up to the pedestrian to actually go up and press the button, and still have to be enforced in that way. So we're going to make those first set of changes here shortly. And hopefully that makes the intersection safer. We've been meeting with the residents there, communicating with them, and letting them know the process that we're making. Are there any questions about that LTAP study? And again, that was free of charge through the state.
Any board questions?
I do have one question. Were sight lines evaluated for those stop signs?
I believe they were.
Okay. I just know
Because
myself going over there, coming out of Lions Park, it's very difficult to see going down, coming up the right from the stop sign. So.
Yeah, in the report, they did mention there's a set of hedges there that kind of block some of the view.
Yeah, I'm out across the street coming out from the park on that side. Same thing, going to the right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Item number 3, Civil Service Commission update. I'll turn it over to Chief Rizzo.
So we, Civil Service Commission met and certified the new applicant list. The list was posted, and we have a final list of we have a final list of 12 applicants. We currently have one position open, and then the other position that we've been working on, as the board's aware, we've been pursuing the opioid funding, the community engagement, and the DARE position. So what my recommendation would be to the Civil Service Commission and to the board, I had a phone conversation with Westmoreland County this week. They're meeting on the 22nd to discuss the distribution of the funds to the municipalities. So my opinion would be to hold off on any hiring for Officer Jandrick's position until Westmoreland County, votes to, disperse their funds. We know what our short-term funding is going to be. We're going to have funding have to move for 23, and then what our longer-term funding is going to look like on that. Westmoreland County believes that there's going to be some guidance shortly within the next few weeks right after that vote. So probably going into the July meeting, we'll have a much clearer picture of what our funding situation will be. So I just think it's the safe and prudent approach on that position. The other one, we do have an opening currently, so I would recommend one, and I would make suggestions to the Civil Service Commission, and then hopefully have a candidate for you with a letter from the Civil Service Commission for the building meeting next Wednesday.
Thank you, Chief.
Any questions?
Any questions for the chief?
Do any of them have not civil, do any of them have the veterans preference?
All top three have that.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, good,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, then that's all absolutely.
It's fine, as long as you're doing that, it's fine.
Yep.
Any other questions for the chief? Thank you.
That is all I have.
Thank you, Manager Falk. Planning and engineering topics, Director Fonzie.
Yes, there are two items to discuss tonight that went through the Planning Commission last week. The first is Site Plan 4 of 2023. This is the North Huntington Clean Express Auto Wash. This is a proposed car wash at the site of the former Teddy's Restaurant, most recently, I think, the Pepper Mill Restaurant. They are a company that's based out of Ohio. They have several other locations in the immediate area. The size of the site is 1.41 acres. They are proposing a double stack lane coming in on the right, and then it will go through a pay kiosk. And then the building here is the orange polygon, so it's a drive-through car wash. The darker spaces out front, there are 20 of them. That denotes a vacuum space, so I believe that is it free vacuum, Mr. Bertucci? Yes. Vacuum spaces, and there's a circulation issue behind the building. They're asking for 2 waivers. That one is related to our township construction detail, which says that the one-way traffic, the aisle width has to be at least 15 feet. And they were proposed around 12, but I think that they were trying to redraw and adjust the site based on the other waiver, which is the 511.8 from the Saudo, which talks about no parking closer than 10 feet to the building. So they had a couple areas involving the sidewalk where the parking would be about 9 feet from the building. So they're asking for those 2 waivers, as you see in your memo. There's going to be an underground stormwater system there in blue, and full landscape plan. They're going to have above and beyond what's required for landscaping. The conditions on the plan are going to be highway occupancy permits from PennDOT for the driveway access, stormwater connection, and any utility work within the right-of-way. Stormwater management plans have to be approved by a conservation district. Stormwater O&M agreement to be signed and recorded with the township, commercial developers agreement, and then they submitted some elevations of what the building is going to look like, so all the materials are approved materials, and then anything else in the KU resources letter that DJ Housley reviewed. But at this time, I can open up the floor for questions, and the applicant is here. If they want to talk about the development, or if the board has any detailed questions for them, we can do that at this time.
Did the planning commission, what did they say about the conditions?
About the waivers?
Yes, the waivers.
This was approved 7-0,
They thought
including
it
the
was okay with
waivers.
the waivers, okay.
Yes.
Gentlemen, would you like to get up and add anything to that?
Introduce myself. My name is Joe Bertucci. I'm with Clean Express Auto Wash, Director of Development. We're very excited about this project and this site. We think that we can make an improvement to what's there. We have existing 5 locations in the area, 2 under construction, and we're going to start another 3, possibly 4 here in 2 months. So we will have a significant presence in Western Pennsylvania. We are based out of, I'm born and raised Pittsburgh. I live here, I work from here, but our company is based out of Columbus, Ohio. We're up to just over 85 locations now. And so we'll have a very significant presence here in Western Pennsylvania. It's a membership. You have a monthly subscription. You can buy a single wash, but memberships create such a value. You go there twice in a month, you pay for your membership. We always have team members who are on site to welcome our customers, interact with them, make sure their experience was a great one. Free vacuums, as Ryan pointed out, you can use those anytime. We have team members who walk the site to make sure it's clean. We want it to be Disney-esque. We do always go above and beyond landscaping-wise because we want that customer to feel welcomed on our site, and we want them to come back. And so I believe, a little biased, but I believe we have a very beautiful building. It's well-constructed to last the test of time. It's all brick construction, so it will look good for years to come. Operationally, we're Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., Sunday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Again, staff is always on site during those hours to help. And I welcome any other questions. One other thing I do want to point out before questions, what we're very proud of is every site we have a charity that we sponsor who is hyper local to the area. So not Western PA, it has to be in the community that it is situated. In the first 10 days of our grand opening, we donate 100% of those proceeds. We do ask for a donation from customers who come in. We give away the wash for free. We do ask for a donation. 100% of that money goes to that charity. And then we continue that on throughout our entire presence here in the community. So we'll do it quarterly. We'll do it annually. We'll run the air freshener fundraiser, a towel fundraiser. Towels we'll sell for $4. It's a one-time payment. You can exchange that towel for free the rest of your membership. But that every time, every day, every year, that towel, 100% of that money goes to the charity. We never take that money ever. That's always a charity fundraiser. And so that money goes specifically to the charity that we sponsor. The charity can change throughout the years, throughout the quarters, but we're very, very proud of that, to be able to donate money to charities locally in this community, provide jobs and provide money to local charities. And if anyone has recommendations, we welcome those, assuming that we get approved, but near and dear to our heart are helping the youth. So our owner wants to help those children who are underprivileged or don't have those privileges in life, to give them that sort of extra help and get them in the right direction in life. We do sponsor other charities all the time, but if there's one in this community that can help the youth, that's what we're interested in. I'll welcome any questions. 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Sunday.
Thank you.
I have a question. You said there will always be some staff on hand. How many people do you expect to hire in the area for that new location if it passes?
For each site, normal hours we'll have about 2 team members. Peak hours we'll have 3. So one will be inside the retail area, another one at the kiosk helping customers, and a third one walking the site, interacting with customers after wash, before wash, and making sure our site is clean. In total, we typically have about 15 to 20 employees per site, rotating shifts, and then we can use them in other sites too as we grow.
Ryan, there was a question at the planning commission meeting about the fire department giving input. Did they ever give you input?
I have not heard. I don't know if you'd reached out to Straw Pump Fire Department, because that was one of the questions about if that rear lane, that rear access lane behind the building, if it were to be reduced to the proposed 12 feet, would the fire department, the primary call, have an issue with that? So we need their approval basically to sign off on that to get that waiver.
My name is Andrew Holsopple. I'm the engineer from BL Companies. We have not reached out to the fire department, but we are working on making that back lane there the appropriate 15 feet that's required. So we are working on that. But we will, if we can get a contact, we can reach out to the fire department and get their review for that.
Sure, I can send that out in an email.
Okay.
And just to confirm, because I was at the planning commission meeting too, that lane in the back where right now it's like 12 feet, but you say you're trying to make it 15, that's just a bypass lane, correct? Not every vehicle will go through that lane, correct?
That is correct. That lane is only used if vehicle were to break down and we need to get it out of the way, or if a vehicle broke down in front of it and we needed to, remove vehicles behind it. That's the only time that lane is used. And I mean, it doesn't help this meeting, but we already have a plan where that lane is 15 feet. There was a pinch point at the front corner where it bends, and we're 99.5% sure that that will become 15 feet as well. So that whole issue will go away. It will be a non-issue, and they'll be able to circulate the building.
Because any car that goes around that curve and down that lane are going through the car wash.
Correct.
If there's an issue that it can't go through the car wash, then it needs to bypass around the building.
That is correct.
Correct, okay. Then if you can explain too, and you explained it well at the planning commission about the sidewalk exemption that you want. I think you explained it well, that most of your business will not be going into the building, most of it, correct?
Yes, sir, meaning foot traffic.
Yes,
Hopefully, all the vehicles go through our building to wash their car, but to your point.
foot traffic.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly, yeah. The busiest part that is, most of it's all controlled, right? So when you pull onto our site is a lot of directional signs, team members waving to you, helping you out. So it's very controlled circulation for vehicles, vehicular traffic around the stack lanes, through the building and through the exit. Customers can pull into the back lanes, and then it's sort of up to the customer and how they can drive, right? And so we want to provide as much space as we can. What we found is typically 24 feet your minimum requirement in any area. We like to make that as wide as we possibly can to allow for more maneuverability for customers. And so that's why we want to sort of slide that sidewalk closer to the building. One, it removes a tripping hazard of any type of landscape area between a parking space and then a landscaped area. You would have the building and you would have our vacuums, and therefore a nice visual walking aisle. Two, it allows that drive aisle in between the back lanes to be wider to create safer driving habits, backing up, pulling in, customers crossing, walking back and forth to throw garbage away. There's a lot of activity there that's not as controlled, that we can't control, but we can provide a safety buffer by creating a larger drive aisle.
Thank you.
Thanks for reminding me of
Thanks.
that.
And Ryan, I had another question. Have we heard anything from PennDOT regarding the distance to that intersection? And the reason that I have that concern is we just paid for that sync up, and there's probably going to be a continuous flow of cars exiting out the car wash on that far side.
I met with DJ Housley today, and I don't think he has received anything from PennDOT. I'm not sure what the status of the application is for the HOP.
We've started the scoping application, and we just received feedback from the scoping application. So
Okay.
we will be in process of submitting an HOP.
And typically, those permits aren't issued for weeks after the approval anyway, so.
That was my only concern with that.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? No other questions. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, and the last item is Site Plan 5 of 2023. This is the Bear Peak Power battery energy storage system. And this is at a site, proposed site, west of the West Penn Power substation. This is at the top of Ridinger Park Road off of 993. And this is sort of a newer technology. It stores electrical energy in a battery that can be basically sold back to West Penn Power when the grid is being taxed, or in times when the power is down. So the applicant is actually going only for preliminary approval. There's still some issues with the plan. As far as, I think their largest hurdle is the geotechnical report, which has not been performed yet. So the way this site is going to work, and I believe it's going to be a balanced fill site. Is that correct? Or you might have to bring in a little bit more fill. So there are going to be some pretty high retaining walls on this site. The one I believe is the highest is 28 feet. So pretty sizable excavation that's going to happen here, but that might also provide a noise buffer and a site buffer from the surrounding properties. The zoning officer views this as a utility use. The property is zoned R2, which is residential, but a utility could be on any zoned property. So he did not have an issue with that. There's a close-up of sort of the battery field and what it could potentially look like. I'm going to actually turn it over to Bear Peak Power. They have a presentation that they prepared that they would like to sort of talk about this newer technology and kind of the use and what it would mean for North Huntington. So let me get this presentation set up for them.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Michael Corns, an attorney representing Bear Creek Power. Just to let you know, we're going to have the presentation from the developer here. We also have myself here if there's any legal questions, as well as one of the engineers if there's any specific engineering questions. As you just heard, we are coming in for preliminary approval. Preliminary approval is a recognized form of approval under the MPC. It's essentially a way for the municipality and the developer to have an earlier intervention with each other to talk about what they're going to have and have a game plan going forward. So that's the type of approval that we're seeking. I'm going to turn it back over now for the presentation, and after that's over again, if you have any questions for any of us, just let us know.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Vorlacek. I am the Director of Development at Bear Peak Power, and very excited to talk about this project today. So a little background on Bear Peak Power. We are a renewable energy development company focused on distributed generation and utility scale solar solutions, and now battery energy storage solutions. The Bear Peak team itself has over 40 years of development and energy industry experience, and we have successfully developed over 85 megawatts in 5 different states, and we have well over 500 megawatts under development right now. So here's just a quick look at some of our existing projects that are in the ground today. We've seen a lot of activity in the New York marketplace for community solar projects. So here's just a couple examples. A lot of my experience outside of Bear Peak Power falls inside Massachusetts, Connecticut, kind of the Northeast area, but just here's some of our projects that we've completed recently. So a little bit about what we're proposing with this project, battery energy storage systems. It's relatively a newer type technology, but the fundamentals of it are, we have a lot of history of it. So to sum it up, lithium-ion batteries are the prevailing technology, or chemistry rather, for battery energy storage systems like these. No different than what you have in your cell phones or laptops, just on a larger scale. They were composed of the same type of technology, the cells, they're just kind of built out in a larger format. So for this type of system, we're looking at components such as the cells, the modules, which are made up of cells, the racks, which are made up of modules, and then you have your battery management system, which basically is a software ensuring the safe and reliable operation of the system. And then lastly, you have your monitoring equipment, safety equipment, like dry chem fire suppression systems, and your balance of system equipment. The battery energy storage systems can serve a variety of important roles, including these more common roles. Defer costly upgrades to transmission and distribution infrastructure, provide key grid services, support integration of renewable energy generators, including solar and wind. They can alleviate congestion in the grid, reducing brownouts and blackouts. And they also do perform electric bill management, backup power for homes and businesses if you're talking about a more customized solution for your home or your business. The systems that we propose typically operate in the providing key grid services area. That's kind of our main focus and reason why we build these systems. They operate on what's called the frequency regulation marketplace, basically providing a power quality service to everybody that's connected to that substation, ensuring that your power frequency is at 60 hertz or as close as possible to that. So in terms of location, as Ryan pointed out, we're directly west of the West Penn Power substation, shown right here. We're on this rather interesting triangular lot. But up here, I believe, is the municipal water treatment plant, and yeah. So diving into a little bit more details about the project, one of the key things that we are currently working on right now is interconnection. And basically what that is the utility needs to study our project to see what kind of impacts it'll make to the utility distribution grid, if it will make any impacts to the transmission grid, just making sure that it can be operated safely and reliably without impacting any other customers that are connected to the substation. So point of interconnection located on subject parcel, near existing electrical substation on the adjacent parcel. It's very ideally located in the scheme of this project. The project will connect via 2 existing 23 kV circuits that are owned by First Energy, coming directly from that substation. This project charges and discharges from the grid. It does not generate its own electricity. PJM and First Energy are expected to complete the interconnection screening in 2028. And shortly thereafter, we expect the utility's permission to operate date somewhere around Q2 of 2028. This, just for a little context, the reason why this is a rather long timeline, about 5 years out from now, there's lots of solar generator applications that are making their way across the PJM territory, which is this regionally distributed grid operator that kind of balances the grid between multiple states. So they're just working out some this massive queue of projects that they're trying to sort through. So that's why we're up against this rather long timeline. Little details about the civil engineering. Ryan mentioned that there's a 28-foot high retaining wall that mostly spans across this section over to the west. But the overall objective here is to match the existing drainage paths, pre and post conditions of development. The proposed underground detention facility to meet the township's stormwater management requirements, and underground detention facility to discharge to the on-site wetland area. Now a little bit about site access. We're right off of the end of Ridinger Park Road. West Penn Power actually has an easement that they are granting access to us for the purpose of legally entering and exiting the property. That came up in our title report, and as you can see, it was noted on the Alta survey that we'd performed. So some information about, visuals, lighting, security. The project will have up to a 28-foot high retaining wall, mostly along this northern and western border over here. It kind of spans down to 23 feet along this northern section over here as you enter the site. But the surrounding area of this property is mostly wooded. In fact, it's all wooded, and that will help with the visual and any sort of audible mitigation. There will be no permanent lighting on site, only temporary lighting in case of emergency if something were to occur during the nighttime and they needed to deploy some field personnel on site to rectify that. That's when emergency lighting might be used. There will be a forest green color scheme for the chain link fence on the site to kind of blend in with the natural character of the surrounding area. The project complies with all municipality regulations regarding security, and the project will be designed according to the National Electric Code. Moving on to a little bit of details about the traffic analysis. I'll just point out right away that once this site is operated and maintained after construction, there's going to be little to no traffic on site. Maybe about 2 visits per year is something we'd anticipate for regular maintenance of the equipment, and then up to 2 visits per year to maintain the vegetative buffer or whatever landscaping we might put in. But during construction, we anticipate an average of about 4 vehicles will be entering and exiting the site per day. Could be up to, 8 for equipment deliveries, but an average of 4 throughout the 4 to 6 months is anticipated. Once operational, as I mentioned, 2 visits per year for maintenance of vegetation and physical inspection. And then once it's operational, there's no 24/7 physical presence. It'll be remotely operated and maintained. Typically, we have O&M crews that are remotely located in regionally strategically deployed areas. I know there's one up in Massachusetts that we use for solar. I would imagine there's one in Pennsylvania as well, but they can usually be on site within 2 to 3 days, business days, for anything that might come up. If it's really an emergency, 24 hours won't be an issue. So on to the last slide that we have. As Ryan mentioned, we're seeking preliminary approval at this stage, working out the geotechnical surveys and finalizing the retaining wall designs, getting our comfort around that. But for now, preliminary approval. And the understanding here is that the project plans may change after First Energy has studied the project. The footprint of the equipment used for this project could change, but the limits of disturbance will not increase. And a little bit more details on that. Sometimes the utility may say, our infrastructure can't handle the size you propose, so we're gonna have to downsize it just to make sure everything's working correctly. So it's possible that that could occur, but we won't know for a few years. And then lastly, we're seeking project approvals and permits to remain on a timeline consistent with PJM's permission to operate date, which is currently Q2 of 2028. And that's all I got.
I just want to mention real quick that the Planning Commission did recommend the preliminary approval by a vote of 5 to 2, with the condition being literally KU Resources' entire review letter. So, and knowing that, the applicant would have to come back in through the Planning Commission, through the Board of Commissioners to get final approval. But as Chris said, if anything changes with their site design, they would submit drawings, updated drawings for our engineer to look at just to make sure everything's in compliance. So this is just sort of like a foot in the door to get them started with their project, because they're dealing with other outside entities that we can't control. But again, anything for final approval, they'd have to come back through and do these steps again.
Thank you. Any questions?
Would you be able to put the?
Yeah, I do. Can you guys hear me?
Hold on, Eric. Lindsay started talking. We'll get her first.
Could you put the
Okay.
map back up?
Yep.
And show me exactly where are the houses on Reitinger in relation to where this new grid will be?
Sure. So roughly speaking, the project extent is probably, the westernmost portion is probably right around here. And then you've got your residential properties over here. Of course, this project will be sunk down 28 feet into the ground. I think the maximum height of any container in there is around 10 feet. So you're talking about an 18-foot difference where, there's just going to be retaining wall.
And Lindsay, in the GIS, I measured from that closest house on, I believe it's Burning Oaks Road, is a little over 200 feet from where this wall is going to be cut. And that's all wooded, vegetated. But the ones on Reitinger Park, I believe, are a little further down the hill. I don't know that they would be affected as much.
I assumed it would be closer, but you're saying Burning Oaks.
Correct. Yeah, that's where the cul-de-sac is on the left.
Okay, thank you.
And you said the walls will be designed to blend in with the foliage.
So our thought there is to put a chain link security fence around the site, or perhaps another material, and then use kind of a green forest green fabric interwoven into those chain links. We're open to other suggestions, but that's kind of our thought there.
Commissioner Goss, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. So a couple. So I just want to confirm that I heard the nearest house is 200 feet away from this proposed site. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. will this site possibly devalue the homes in the area? Yes or no?
No more than you would see for, an electrical substation. This kind of blends in with the natural character of the surrounding properties. We realize that, our thought is that if you can't see it, nobody's going to notice it. And certainly in this case, nobody's going to see this surrounded by that 28-foot high retaining wall. So our position.
So there's two ways to see. There's two ways to see something. I hear what you're saying. You can see it, or you can hear it. The noise generated by this proposed site, and I'm not talking the building. I'm talking about the day-to-day operation of these transformers and so on and so forth. What is the decibel level?
So the decibel level of the loudest piece of equipment on site is, I believe, 65 decibels. It's, something that you would see at the substation. We actually did a noise study for a separate project, and I don't have the slide up right now, but when you're 50 feet away from that noise source, it drops down to a relative decibel level about 40, which is equivalent to the same noise that you'd hear in your house, just surrounded by, whatever's going on. It's very quiet. You would never distinguish it if you're more than 50 feet away.
And that's 50 feet out?
50 feet away from the source of the transformers, which are well over 200 feet away.
Right, and then we have a total distance of 200 feet to the nearest house.
Yeah, and that would be assuming that you are in a clear line of sight, view of that noise source. That's not accounting for vegetation, the 28-foot high retaining wall, stuff like that, which is going to be present on the site.
Can you guys guarantee that you will leave as many trees as possible to camouflage and conceal this area? My concern is my constituents, or any of the constituents in the township, that this does not become unsightly to them and then come along and devalue their property values that, I don't want a negative impact on our residents. Can you assure me that this will not happen?
Yes, I can assure you with great confidence that that will not happen. Not only are we doing this forest green interwoven fabric into the chain link fence, but if you'd prefer, we could put some vegetative landscaping buffer and add that to our O&M list for the crew to come on site, trim the vegetation, whether it's arborvitae or something else. I'm sure we could come to an agreement if that is preferred. There's not a ton of area that's being impacted here. The whole property itself is, I believe, 4 acres. I think our limits of disturbance is around 2. So, I think there's maybe 100 linear feet of vegetative buffer that we could plant stuff in between that and the residents to come to a mutual, beneficial conclusion there.
All my questions are based on protecting and preserving the residents, their values, their privacy, and the values of their homes. And that's where everything that I've asked, that's what my motivation. So I just wanted that to be out there and to be known that I'm looking out for our residents.
Yep, understood. And we've got, a lot of time to talk about how we, want to hone in on the final design here. So we're in this for the long haul. We'll be back again and for final approval, and I suspect more comments will come up, but our full intent is to cooperate and come to a mutual beneficial solution for this project.
Well, thank you for addressing my concerns. I appreciate it. That's all I have.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other board questions?
Yes.
Oh, good. Go ahead.
I just want to reinforce, you said at the Planning Commission meeting that there's a different way to fight fires there, and to just, so that the board again can hear your commitment to assist our fire departments with the materials that they would need to fight a fire, because otherwise the township would have to pay the costs to be prepared for that type of a fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. So just a little bit of background. Typically how, we've been instructed to treat these types of electrical fires, if they were to occur, is to not use any liquid suppression system. That's why every container is installed with a dry chemical fire suppression system. It's like a non-toxic, non-environmentally hazardous powder, for lack of a better term. And so that will be used to extinguish any fire. These things are tested by the National Fire Protection Administration, and typically, if that were to occur, we wouldn't involve it would just be the fire department's responsibility to make sure it doesn't spread onto other surrounding properties, mostly protecting, residents. But if that were to occur, everything would be in place to kind of remediate any issues with that. But there would be all sorts of safety placarding on site. If something were amiss with the property, we would have a phone number for our O&M team, so anybody could call them and report any sort of issue. During the commissioning of the actual system itself, we would invite the fire department on site and talk about how to safely de-energize the system if something were to occur. And that's standard what we do with all of our solar projects, no different for this BESS battery energy storage project. So we're in full cooperation and ready to work with the fire department on the site.
And I also mentioned at the Planning Commission meeting that since there would be so much earthwork there and you have a 25-foot wall proposed for that, that the geotech for me is really important, that we do have the underground mines, we have soils that can be expansive soils or be acid soils, and so that geotech to me continues to probably be my biggest source of concern.
Yeah, that's agreed. Actually, right after we ended our last meeting last week, we immediately reached out to geotechnical consultants, and we're starting that work because we understand that that's a concern, and so we definitely heard you guys, and we want to make sure that we get that out of the way or resolved in the coming conversations that we have in our plans as they kind of develop.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rich, you have something?
Yes. Virginia covered some of what I was going to ask, but lithium-ion batteries are notorious for fires. And so you have on-site suppression. You mentioned that the fire department would de-energize the equipment. Where does West Penn Power fit into this?
So West Penn Power will also have a remote ability to de-energize or disconnect the system from their grid. There's kind of two fail-safes. There's one that's controlled by West Penn Power, and then one that's really controlled by anybody as you walk into the site. It's an actual switch. So two people could theoretically de-energize the facility, but only one needs to occur for it to be safely de-energized.
Okay.
A little bit about the lithium-ion, combustibility. There's actually a new Underwriters Laboratory test that's occurring, and it's kind of to respond to those lithium fires that have been occurring in the past 10 years. But what they're testing for these days, and what this system will have, is a test for thermal runaway. And what that is if any sort of individual cell within the system starts to get inflamed or the temperature rises, everything is insulated from every single other cell so it doesn't spread and start to combust. If that one cell were to get were to experience thermal runaway, it wouldn't spread to all the other cells. It would just kind of get hot, and then it would die on its own, and then the remote O&M team would be notified. They would go on site, and really no fire will occur with this new Underwriters Laboratory testing procedure.
Okay. I don't know if you can back up to the batteries, the photo you have You had a different one, I thought. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Those are actually what, trucking containers, overseas containers?
Yeah, typically, we've seen some solutions that come in these shipping style containers. This one looks like it's, shorter. They can span up to 50-foot shipping containers, like you said. I think in this solution right here, it's more of like an outdoor, less containerized solution, but given, how the temperatures fluctuate, I believe this is in California where it's more temperate, so you don't need kind of your HVAC system to control the temperature of the modules inside. But yes, for this style, this typically has, some sort of light HVAC equipment to regulate the temperature of the cells.
And inside that, if you swing the doors open, you don't have a picture by chance of that?
Not a close-up picture, but essentially it's very similar to what it would look like right here. It's just kind of racks of batteries. You'd really, if you wanted to dig in one layer deeper, you might have something that you'd want, it sounds like you'd want to look at, but yeah, I don't have a picture of what it looks
Okay.
like on the inside.
So you would have racks of batteries. What would an individual battery size be?
So the individual cell, they can really vary. I've seen, cells be kind of this size right here. Some of them are kind of, more rectangular, maybe like a few pounds, but it's highly dependent upon the manufacturer and, where the batteries
Okay.
are coming from with cells.
And what would one container generate, or not generate, but store? How many
So the
kVA?
Yeah, the manufacturer we're talking with right now has a container similar to these size, and each container stores 2,700 kilowatt hours of energy. So that might be enough to, power several houses for days.
And how many containers would there be?
I believe it's 16. Yeah, 16.
Okay. And I believe you said the batteries interface with the grid at 23 kV, is that right?
Though the primary voltage, the three-phase grid voltage that's going to be serviced by the site from West Penn Power is 23 kV, kilovolts, yep,
Okay, and that's where it interfaces?
with the utility, that's
So
correct.
if you shut it off, that's what you're shutting off?
Yeah, basically, yeah, it would take away the system and, anybody that might be impacted by the batteries wouldn't be affected anymore.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. Any other board comments? I just have a few. The first one, to break this down to like as basic as possible. Am I correct to say what this site would be doing is buying power off of West Penn from their substation, storing it in those batteries, and then in the event of an issue with the grid or a malfunction with the grid, you would sell that energy back to West Penn to provide power to its customers?
Part of that is true. I would say, one of the ways, is to, buy and sell energy. But the other way you're describing, in case of power outages, would this battery serve as like a backup generator? Honestly, the answer is kind of belongs to West Penn Power. We're trying to work with them right now to come up with an operating agreement for this type of project because they're the ones that would really need to be responsible for deploying or dispatching this energy to ensure that customers don't experience power outages or brownouts, blackouts. We only provide them the product to make that happen, but since they operate the grid, they're the ones that are in control of that. So given how relatively new this technology is, they are kind of sitting and waiting and seeing how everything kind of unfolds. And we're on a long timeline too, so I don't blame them for, not wanting to get in so early right now. But we hope in the next 5 years, when this project does come a reality, they'll get more serious about considering this.
So you'd be storing the energy to be used by West Penn,
Yeah,
basically,
yep,
yeah. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
basically.
Would it be fair to say that you're more of a stabilizer rather than a backup? I can't see the batteries supplying anything for any valuable piece of time.
Yeah, it's,
I work with some batteries and
Yeah.
backup.
yeah, you're right. It would really only work in, those like 2-hour, 4-hour brownouts. That's when it would be valuable.
As a supplement,
as a
right?
s- yeah,
Not
as a
as the total backup.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
Well,
to balance the grid?
Yeah, it's, that's more of a question for West Penn Power. I'm not sure how, their balancing situation looks like, but, to your earlier comment, this battery project, I can say with certainty, will at the very least be providing a frequency regulation service,
Right.
providing, greater power quality for everybody's appliances. Big motors, they typically, really operate on 60 hertz, and any kind of fluctuations there can degrade the equipment over time. So that's kind of the power quality service we're providing with this project.
So this is more of a power conditioning setup than a backup.
That's one of the, I would say realistically, that's the primary purpose of this, but
Right.
there's also a secondary and a tertiary.
Right. Thank you.
And then we had some talk about the batteries and fires with them. These batteries, are they similar to like a lithium battery in an electric vehicle?
Yeah, I would say, coming like directly from the source, they're probably diverted into, they come from the same source, I would say, and they're either diverted to projects like these or cars.
Okay. And my last question, either for you or for Director Fonzie, do we know how far that West Penn substation that is already located in that area, how far that is to the nearest residence?
I don't offhand. I mean, it looks like the homes on Ridinger Park Road, as the crow flies, would be closer than 200 feet, and that's an existing station. So I don't know. I could get you some distances off the GIS.
I was just curious, because from the map, it looks like those residents there are closer to that West Penn substation than any resident would be to this proposed development.
Yeah, I would
Is
agree with
safe
that.
to say that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Thank you for the detailed explanation and for the PowerPoint. That was very informative.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you. I'm happy to answer any other questions if you're curious about this or any of our other projects, so thank you.
Thank you.
And I also just want to, again, thank the commissioners for all of that. And, the reason we came in for preliminary and the benefit of preliminary is that many of the questions that you're raising or issues, or questions about the landscape and whatnot, at this stage in the project, we can, we may be able to accommodate those. If we came in sometimes as these projects do just at final, after they've gotten permitting and things from the state, our ability to sort of, maneuver is a little bit more limited. So that's kind of the benefit of coming in at this stage when we're very early. So we appreciate you hearing us out.
Thank you.
That's all I
Anything
have.
further? Okay. Old business? Further board comments?
Yes. Manager Falk, could you give us an update on the 250th celebration?
Sure. Director Miller has been working with his team. They're going to put a teaser out tomorrow for Save the Date. I don't want to steal his thunder because he's been so involved in that. We do have a primary sponsor for that,
Okay.
which will be coming out tomorrow.
Okay.
But everything is going smoothly.
Is it public, the location for it yet? Can we
They're
talk
working
about
out
that?
They're working out the final details and logistics, but we believe we have the spot picked out for it.
Okay,
just pending some minor logistics with traffic control and parking.
okay. So that's not public yet?
No, not
All
yet.
right.
Oh, is it going to be public next Wednesday? By next Wednesday? Or don't you know?
I believe so. I'd have to talk to Director Miller about that, but I can discuss it internally. I mean, we could discuss it internally.
Okay.
If you like.
Well, I had some questions about the sites. I know there's two under consideration. I had heard it was set in stone now, that it was decided, and I just had some concerns about that. So,
Okay. What are your concerns?
well, how it's going to work. The surfaces, the pavement, the land, the hazards, things of that nature.
They have, the team has I feel they have a great group of emergency management. Chief Rizzo's on that. I think a member from the fire department as well. They've worked out, I think I have the same questions you have. And I've been down there visiting, and I wholeheartedly believe it's going to be probably the perfect place, and it's going to open up the eyes and put us in a good spotlight for our departments. I think the board will be very pleased, and the township will be very pleased.
Okay. I just think there's things that need to be addressed before. The date is, I mean, you don't have to say the date, but we're looking at late summer,
Yeah, the end
early
of
fall?
the end of
Which-
September.
Okay,
Yeah, the last weekend in December, or the last weekend in September.
September.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other further board comments? Just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned at 8:02 PM.
President Hagus, Commissioner Goss, I'm going to hang up.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
I take it Eric gets into